Okay, so I'm gonna start as usual with the sponsors. Hopefully that will give a couple of other guys a chance to get on. And then we'll go from there, okay? So, whoa. Sponsorships, A Year of Learning, Dr. Paul Koningsberg, in memory of his brother, Dr. Sam Koningsberg, Shimon Ruvain ben Labish, and Ed Goldberg's cousin, Nisan Hara Nisan ben Fardosa. Paul and Bob Bromberg, in memory of their dear friend Julian Smith, Yehuda ben Yisrael. In memory of Malcolm Mann and my family murdered, also those murdered in the Holocaust, Arav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bas Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bas Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bas Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Many friends of Dr. Marvin Blush, Moshe Shalom ben Yitzchak Halevi, friends of Toby Peres, Sarah Tova bat Yisrael Dov, friends of Malka Levi, Malka bat Yosef, friends of Avi Gitler, Avram Meir ben Shimon, and Martha Gitler, Chana bas Yoshiaya. Cheryl Sher, her children and grandchildren, in memory of her uncle, founding member of BRS, Dr. Israel Brook, Yisrael ben Arav Akiva. Marcia Federbush and family, in memory of her husband, Dr. Oriel Paul Federbush, Oriel Pinchas ben Harav Shimon. Friends of Joe Wolf, Yosef ben Chaim. Sharon and Fred Lisker, their family and many friends, in memory of her dear mom, Harriet Friedman, Edelbat Yaakov. Leslie and Gail Kaplan, in memory of their parents, Harry and Marjorie Siddell, and Irving and Pearl Kaplan. A month of learning by ending today, the 26th, by Andrea and David Dolmy, in memory of her mother, Edel Sinabat Shimshon. A month of learning, then Friends of Bella Silverstein, Bela Bas Yaakov. A month of learning sponsored in honor of those who joined the first series of Epistemology of Tefillah by Cheryl Sher. A week of learning ending today, sponsored by Ruth Kosman, in memory of her husband Shmuel ben Yitzchak. Also a week of learning ending today by Marcus and Arlene Elaha Shalom Tellerman, in memory of his mother-in-law Esther Bas Nachum. Continuing, Judy Iger, a week of learning in memory of her husband, Aaron ben Shlomo Michael, David and Mindel Cheslow, in memory of his father Moshe ben Ruvain Mordechai, Susan and Ron Podolsky, in memory of her father Simcha Bunam ben Yeshua. A day of learning plus Torah fund. Today, sponsored by Ileana Gaylor, in memory of her husband Michal Mendel ben Moshe. Okay. And also from Wednesday, a day of learning by Stephanie and Andrew Becker, in memory of her father Avram ben Ze'ev. And for for Sunday, a day of learning by Pauline Feldman, in memory of her father-in-law, Yehuda Leib ben Moshe Mordechai. And for Monday, a day of learning by Harold and Elaine Rin, in memory of his mother, Leah Bas Chaim Tzvi Halevi. May Shemas have an Aliyah, Krank Rafia, Velti Yeshua Shema Talia, and the Chol B'nai Yisrael, a good Gaben Shtiyar.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay. So let us get started with the Gemara. We are on the top of Hay, Amud Aleph. Okay. Remember, we had finished up there, okay, with this discussion. Right, the Gemara is about the shutafut, the partnership between brothers, whether they were maintaining their father-in-law's or father's property as a single unit, or whether they had divided it up. Okay, that's what the Gemara was telling us at the bottom of Dalet Amud Beis, continuing then on the top of Hay, Amud Aleph, Upa'amim shehem pturim mizeh umizeh. Right, saying that there are times that they were exempt from an animal tithe, but at times they have to pay the surcharge. Other times it's the opposite. And then there says at times when they're exempt from both. And that's where we're going to pick up. Okay. Now, one of the things I want to quickly point out is our Gemara gives us, when there's a Lashon Acher, other languages, it prints it as if it's part of the same Gemara. Okay? What happens if they divided up the property and then divided the animals? Right? Chayavin b'zeh b'zeh. They would be required to pay both the tithe and to require to pay the surcharge when they paid their half shekel. Chalku et behema v'achar kach chalku et nechasim. Paturim mizeh mizeh. That if they divided up the animals and only afterwards divided up the other property, they would be exempt from both the tithe and the surcharge. Now, coming back to our regular Gemara text. Chalku ha-nechasim v'lo chalku et ha-behema chayavin b'zeh u'b'zeh. This says that if they divided up the property but did not divide the livestock, they would be obligated both in cases of the animal tithe and the kolbon, the surcharge. Chalku ha-behema v'lo chalku et ha-nechasim. If they divided up the animals but not the property, they would be exempt in both. Now, the new piece in the Gemara, trying to qualify. Amar Rabbi Mana, he says as follows, Hada da'at amar, that here when you say, rov, that's generally a situation where we say that the animals weren't a majority of the reporters or whatever, 9 or 10. Okay, the assets. And he had little talking points about im hayta behema rov, but if the animals, okay, were the majority of the assets, the hein ikar nechasim, then they are considered to be the majority of the assets. And also, since that's the predominant part of the property, that would determine what he would be, what the brothers as partners would have to pay. Okay. Now, Rabbi Avin Amar follows. He's going to give a slightly different statement and tell us as follows. Rabbi Avin says, Rabbi Shimi Bae, that Rabbi Shimon made an inquiry, a question. Mipnei she'asiten ka'adam echad, isn't it similar, he says, to a situation where the brothers then are treated like one person, okay? And as a result, okay, what we're saying is that in regards to the animal tithe, at potro min kalbon, that therefore you should exempt him from the, shouldn't you exempt him from the surcharge? Amarle, so he's answered, lo shaniyahi. There really is no difference, okay, whether it's that the two people paid with one coin or two coins. Shahuno tain sela, echad shlema, okay, that when they pay even with an entire sela, which we said was equal to 2 shkalim, okay, what happens? Okay, we see that they still are going to have to, if it's based on the fact that they're two people, no change back, but they still have to pay, right, 2 surcharges. If it's as if it's paying on one item, one entire piece of property, inheritance, then they would get change back, but they would still have to pay for what a surcharge for their payment and a surcharge for their change. Me'ata, he says, afilu cholko v'chazru v'nishtatfu. Therefore, he says, even if they separated, in other words, they divided up the family estate, and then they joined together once more to become partners. They are still, right? Chayavin b'maaser behema, they would still be obligated in paying the animal tithe, u'paturin min hachalbon, and they would be exempt from the surcharge, right? Utzninen, and we teach, therefore, chayavin b'kalbon, u'paturin min ma'aser behema. But nevertheless, it taught in that situation that they were obligated to pay the surcharge and exempt from the animal tithe. Okay? So don't we have a problem there? Therefore, the Gemara continues and tries to answer. Rabbi Ba, right? That's one of the Chamim, right? And so that's B'Shem Abba Ba Rav Huna. Okay, what is he telling us? The following. He explains it this way. Right? He shnei achim, that there are two brothers, sheyashu et avihen, that they inherited their father. He shnei gisim, sheyashu et chamehen, that's similar to two sons-in-law or two brothers-in-law who inherited the property of their father-in-law. Lehechan hayu hakablanot noflim. Then according to whom, okay, who is at what point, where does the surcharges are going to go to, okay? Where does that, what do they put to? Rabbi Meir Omer, the shkalim. According to Rabbi Meir, this extra money is going to go into shkalim. It goes, right, to pay after the obligatory offerings, whatever else, that extra money. Rabbi Eliezer Omer l'nedava, and Rabbi Eliezer says, no, it goes to the free will offerings. Okay, that therefore, that after the money is taken from the lishka, right, to pay for all the communal offerings, whatever money is left over is going to pay for extra free will offerings when the Mizbeach is, so to speak, empty. Okay? Now, Rabbi Shimon, however, says another example. Rabbi Shimon Shazori Omer, Rikua Zahav. No, that extra money is going to pay for the gold plating. V'tzipui lebeit kodesh kadoshim, the gold plating that is inside, used as like a wallpaper, if you will, okay, for the Holy of Holies. Ben Azai Omer, okay, Shulchanin hayunot linotam b'scharan. According to Ben Azai, that the money changers themselves take a share of that extra money, and that covers their operating fees. V'yesh omrim lahotzaat drachim. And there are others who say that it covers the travel expenses. What do we mean, travel expenses? Well, as we're going to see in just a moment in the next parak, okay, the communities some distant from Eretz Yisrael, from Jerusalem, had to somehow transport their shkalim from their community to Yerushalayim. Now, did they use paid messengers or did they use unpaid messengers? So if they used paid messengers, which means the messenger is more responsible if anything happens to that shkalim, right? Who pays him? Is it the townspeople or the money in the offices, so to speak, of the temple in Jerusalem? So that's a good lead-in to our new parak, as we say, Hadran alach parak be'ada echad ba'ada. Now, we go to our new parak, right? And what are we going to see here? Matnitin, our new Mishnah. Metzarfin shkalim ledarkonot. Okay? Since we have to bring this money, say from Tveria or Haifa, okay, those northern communities. You're going to bring all of those, let's say bringing quarters, right? Or $50, right? Wouldn't it be easier to change it into larger uh, uh, coinage and therefore bring it that way? And so that's what the Mishnah is telling us. We join, we transfer, okay, these shkalim to what's called darkonot. Okay, it's a darik. It was a gold coin, okay, a gold dinar. So since we said that a dinar is equal to, okay, 2 shkalim, and you were paying half a shekel, so that meant you could get 4 half-shekel coins into 1 dinar, and that was if it was silver. So if it was gold, you might be able to get more than 4 shkalim, right? More than 4 half-shekels. So that's what the Mishnah is telling us. Mipnei masui haderech, because of the burden of the trip. Kashem shayu shofarot b'mikdash. And now the Mishnah tells us the same way that there were shofar collection boxes. And we call them that because they were in the shape of a shofar. Namely, they were narrow at one end and wide at the other end. Okay? The same way a shofar is. And so the same way they were these shofar-shaped collection boxes in the temple precinct, kach hayu shofarot b'medina. So too there were similar collection boxes at various towns and cities throughout the country. B'nei ha'ir sheshalchu et shekleihem, if people from a town, okay, sent their shkalim, what happened? V'nignavu, and the shkalim were stolen. O she'ibdu, or they got lost. Im nitrama hatruma, if by the time that town's, let's say, assessment had not reached Yerushalayim, and it came due to make the first withdrawal from the lishka, right? Nitrama hatruma, nishba'in legizbarim, then an oath has to be taken, right, before the temple treasurers. Who takes the oath? The messengers, the baileys. The question is, were they paid or are they unpaid? Because their level of responsibility, remember, differs if they're unpaid baileys or if they're paid. Shomer chinam or shomer sachar is the difference that the Gemara is going to tell us. Okay? V'im lav, and if not, nishba'in levnei ha'ir, then otherwise they must take an oath before the people, the townspeople. U'bnei ha'ir shoklin tachtein, okay? And then the townspeople have to cough up another tax, another payment of half shkalim, right? What happens, says the Mishnah? Nimtza'u, if those initial tax money, those initial shkalim were found, O shechzirum haganavim, or the thieves returned them. Elu ve'elu shkalim, both the earlier collection and the later collection are all consecrated shkalim. Okay? They all go to the temple. Ve'en olin lehem l'shana haba'ah. And the Mishnah tells us, however, that they don't go towards the forthcoming year. Namely, one group pays that year's tax, and the other gets put in with the old money, the old tax.
So the messengers who are carrying the money, if they see it's lost, do they immediately turn around and go back to the townspeople?
Good question. Good question, Zev. Let's continue with the Gemara and see
Oh,
if it's going to tell us that. Okay?
Doesn't sound very fair to me.
That doesn't sound fair, right? So let's see what happens. The Gemara may clarify. Vyasuotan margoliot. So the Gemara says, why are they changing it into these larger gold coins? Why don't they just change it into jewelry, into jewels like pearls? Okay. Shema tazil hamargoliot v'nimtza hehekdesh mafsid. Says the reason we don't turn it into pearls, into jewelry, okay, is because maybe the value of the pearls of the jewelry will change and the temple will lose money. Kehahi detaninu, like that which we were taught tman elsewhere, right? Vikulan nifdin bekesef, namely that there are other things can be redeemed through money, ubeshava kesef, or through things equal to money, chutz mishkalim, with the exception of the machatzita shekel, the half shekel tax, ve'ein podin bekelim, and we cannot redeem them using utensils. V'amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak, shema yazilu hakelim. Why is that? He says because perhaps the value of the utensils will decrease. V'nimtza hahekdesh mafsid, and then the temple is going to lose out. Okay? So what happens? We continue and we then tell us oaf, which means here afilu, even hacha, nami, even here too. Shema tazil hamargoliot, perhaps too, these precious stones like pearls will lose their value. V'nimtza hahekdesh mafsid, and as a result, the temple will lose out. Okay. Now, having said that, we're going to continue with further discussion. We haven't answered either Zev's question or Steve's comment yet, but let's see what happens. Matnita, our Mishnah, says the Gemara, betaklin chadatim, are dealing with new shkalim. Aval betaklin atikim, but with regards to old, in other words, shkalim that were owed from a previous year, lo bada, it's not included here. Vatani came, and it teaches this in a Braita. Atikin b'mikdash, ve'ein atikin b'medina. Namely, there were collection boxes or shofars in the temple precinct for past due shkalim, but there are no collection boxes for past due shkalim throughout the countryside. Matniten, okay? Again, our Mishnah, b'shach. Here we're saying b'shomer chinam. Now we're talking about a bailey, a messenger who doesn't get paid. Aval b'shomer sachar, but with a messenger, in other words, somebody who's going to schlep all that from their town to Yerushalayim, and they get paid for it. Lo b'da, it doesn't seem to refer to him here either. Amar Rabbi Abba, says Rabbi Abba va'afilu tema barabi. Okay, and here he says even more. Okay, even if we say that it is b'shomer sachar, even with a paid bailey, nignavu, if it was stolen, bilistim mezuyin, maybe even though he's a shomer sachar, he's getting paid, okay, and therefore he should have higher responsibility. Why do you say that they would still have to go back and report to the town to pay? Bilistim mezuyim, they were armed robbers, okay, or avdu, or let's say that the shkalim got lost, right? Kamosha tevas finato bayam, that they were shipping them by sea and the ship sank, okay? Or maybe the ship was in danger of sinking, and what did they do? They threw over the heavy chests, right? Amar Rabbi Yustai, says Rabbi Yustai, but Rabbi Simon, okay? What is he telling us here? The following. Ache command Amar Tormi, he says. It's just like the one who says to the temple treasurers, Al Hagaboy, Al Ha'atid Legabot. Namely, it's a question of the money that is coming in, okay, that has been collected, versus the money that's future to be come in. Okay? Bram, however, command Amar Ein Tormin, Lo al Hagiboy, V'lo al Memushkan, the al Ha'atid Gabot, Lo Beda. But here we're saying it's on the money that has already been collected, right? But in regards to any future collections, there we don't, so to speak, rely on it, right? However, according to the one who says we don't take out the collection, okay, remember that was done 3 times a year, okay? We don't do it on what was collected and not on the collateral. The al-ha'atid legabot lo bada, okay? And on that which still did not reach the temple yet to be collected, the law is not according to what our Mishnah said. Okay, let's go on now. B'nai ha'ir. This may come back to Steve's point, okay? And yet we're going to see Zev yours. People of this city, that they sent their shkolim, okay? In other words, they've contributed. They put it into the box, collection boxes. Whose responsibility is it if something happens to that money? Is it the townspeople or is it the temple's responsibility? Amar Rabbi Eliezer, he says, the Rabbi Shimon he. This must be the view of Rabbi Shimon. He says, why? The Rabbi Shimon Omer, Kadshim, Shehu Chayav Ba'achriyutan, right? Kinisachav Haim, who says that things for which one has the responsibility, right? It's like one's own property. Okay? So in other words, even if you gave it and put it in the collection box, it doesn't become the temple property till it's delivered to the Beis HaMikdash, to the Gazbarim. Otherwise, it's still the property of the townspeople. And therefore, according to Rabbi Shimon, they hold responsibility. Thus, if it's stolen or lost, they have to pay up a second time. Okay? That's Rabbi Shimon's view. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan, however, says, Divrei Hakol hi mishum shvuat takana. According to Rabbi Yochanan, okay, we have a rabbinic requirement of a vow, and therefore it's always the responsibility of the messenger, regardless, okay, of if he's paid or not paid, to make a vow. Now, to whom does he make the vow is the question, okay? Here we see that the Mishnah tells us, Al da'ate de Rabbi Yochanan necha. According to the view of Rabbi Yochanan, that's fine. Why? Nishba'in legizbarim. That he must make the vow to the temple treasurers. Ve'im lav, and if not, Nishba'in lebnei ha'ir. Then he must make the vow to the townspeople. U'bnei ha'ir shoklim achirim tachtehen. And if that's the case, then the people of the townspeople, they must pay a second machatzita shekel, a second tax, to replace the one that was lost, mishum shvuat takana, as we continue on Hey Amud Beis, right? Because we say of this rabbinic required vow. Ella, the Rabbi Lezer, okay, but according to the view of Rabbi Lezer, okay, what happens? Nishba'in levnei ha'ir. We say that he has to swear to the townspeople, okay? Hada, he the Rabbi Shimon, okay? So this then seems to be explainable also according to the view of Rabbi Shimon, who said, remember, that it's their responsibility, okay? Nishba'in legizbarim. But when we say that Bailey has to give testimony to the temple treasurers, gizbarim, ma'ya vidatayu. So the temple treasurers, what are they going to do? Right? What can they say? So therefore the Gemara tells us, Nishba'im levnei ha'ir b'ma'amad gazbarim, that he must take an oath to the townspeople, okay, when? In the presence, all right, of the temple treasurers. Ki hechi delo lechashdainhu, in order so that the temple treasurers won't suspect, right, that the townspeople are trying to get away with not paying. Inami, or possibly, delo nishvu laho poshim, or that they won't think that they're negligent, that they're sinners and they didn't give whatsoever. So our Gemara, however, now wants to continue. Afal pi shekiblu b'nei ha'ir l'shalem, even though the townspeople may agree to reimburse, to repay that temple treasury, right? L'shalem, right? Ein ha'hekdesh yotzei below shvu'ah. We have a principle that says that acknowledging that it's temple property, it cannot be exchanged, released, removed without some sort of a vow, some sort of.
That involves a lot of traveling, though. The townspeople are in Chutz La'aretz and the treasurers are near the temple.
Okay. Or maybe what happens is theoretically, they could send one of the temple treasurers to that community, okay? Because Bailey, the messenger, has got to go back anyway. So it makes more sense for them to send the temple treasurer, okay, along with the Bailey, back to the town and have him testify that way. Okay, just a suggestion. Okay. Gemara now says, let's look at another scenario. Okay. Not if the Bailey had something happen to him, but you're the average balabas, and you know that you have this, it was announced Adar 1 that you've got to put aside your machatzita shekel, your half shekel tax, and you take it and you say, okay, I am going to put it aside in my night table drawer, so to speak. All right? And when the collectors are set up on the 15th of the month, I'll pull it out and I'll give it to them. Now that's 2 weeks in advance. Remember, before the collectors are set up in your town. You come on the 15th to get it out, and what happens? It's not there. Whose responsibility is it? Do you have to dig up another? Okay? Or can you say, well, I did set it aside. I'm not sure what happened to it. But since I set it aside already, it's as if it's consecrated and I'm done. So here we go. Okay? Hifrish shkalo ba'abad. He separated, right? He put his shekel. What we mean here, of course, is the half shekel tax, right? And it got lost, right? And this is all before the time that they withdrew the first amount from the Lishka in Yerushalayim, which was probably a few days before the beginning of Nisan. Okay? Now, so what happens? Right? Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Chayav ba'achriyuto, ad sheyim serenu l'gizbar. According to Rabbi Yochanan, okay, the person is responsible until the money is delivered and given over to the temple treasurer. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish omer, Hekdesh b'reshut hagavoa b'chol makom shehu. That once it's set aside, okay, it is the property of the Most High, of Shemayim, okay, wherever it could be. And therefore the person would not have to pay it again. Now, Matnita, Pliga Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. It seems then that our Mishnah disagrees with Reish Lakish. Nishba'in lebnei ha'ir, because it said that he takes an oath, the Bailey, okay, before the townspeople, ubnei ha'ir shoklin tachtein. And it says in that situation, the townspeople have to pay another tax. Lo od, no. Furthermore, he mishum shvuat takana. And here we also said that there has to be a oath, okay, rabbinically required oath. So the Gemara says the following: Tani harishonim noflim l'tklin chadatim. We have a braita that says that the first set of shkalim, remember, if they were returned by thieves or they were found, those go in with the new shkalim. Vahashniim, and the second set, noflim l'tkilin atikim, they go into the old set of shkalim. Elu hein harishonim, ve'elu hein hashniim. So which of the first set and which of the second set? Rabbi Pinchas Rabbi Chia Chanina. Okay, what is he telling us? Okay. The Rabbi Abba Amari. Okay, hold on a second. All right. Then Rabbi Abba Mari says, Chad Amar Elu sheshalchu b'nei ha'ir tchila. He says it's based on the ones, the first shkalim are the ones that the townspeople sent out first. The Charna Amar, and the other one said, Elu shehigiu liyidei gazbarim tchila. And the other one says it's whatever group amount of shkalim reach the temple treasurers first. Okay. Now we go on to the next halacha. Okay. We said that certain people, remember in the first Mishnah, are not expected to pay this temple tax. Women, minors, non-Hebrew servants, okay? But Levites, Israelite males, freed Hebrew servants, and the converts, adult males, all of them have to pay, okay? Now, what happens if, let's say, I decide that when I'm going to pay my tax, I go to the town and I said, well, I'm going to, I know sometimes it's difficult for Zev to get around, okay? So I'm going to pay his tax for him, okay? Is that acceptable? Is that doable? Okay, so he gets, right? And so therefore I'm not looking for change when I give, let's say, a whole shekel. Okay. Now, remember also, in that case, if I'm doing that, I also don't have to pay the surcharge. Okay, so I think that if I remember that correctly. So let's see what happens. Okay, halacha bet matnitin, our Mishnah. Hanotein shiklo lechavero lishkol al yado. So this Mishnah tells us, in this case, Zev has given me his half shekel to deposit, to put in for him. Okay? Vishiklo al yadei atzmo. Okay? And, right, also, okay, he, the friend went and put it in for himself instead. Okay? So right, that's not the best, the nicest thing to do, but what happens? Okay? Im nitrama hatruma, says the Mishnah, if they've already begun taking the truma, in other words, withdrawing the money from the lishka in Jerusalem, ma'al, then I have committed an act of me'ilah. And a act of me'ilah, look at, if an art scroll, there's a long misuse of temple property, a long note there on 5b2, note number 15. Okay. However, the Gemara continues. Hashokel shiklo min hahekdesh. Okay, let's say that one contributes his shekel from consecrated funds, other money that had been set aside. V'nitrama hatruma. Okay, and again, the money has been withdrawn. Karvaha behema, and also, okay, the tithe for the animal tithe has also been taken. Ma'al, again, that's an act of misuse of temple property. Mima'aser sheni, let's say I took it from ma'aser sheni money that was consecrated. Umedemei shvi'it, okay, or from money that was associated with shvi'it. Yochal kenegdan. What must I do? I must take then, okay, that produce or that money and buy in Jerusalem and eat the equal amount of that value of money in Jerusalem. Gemara continues. What happens? He says, Hashokel, okay, one who contributes his shekel, anantnina, im karvaha behema, okay, if we're going to teach, okay, that the animal is offered from the truma, okay, that's what happened. Okay, Batane debe Rabbi, okay, and therefore teach it according to the Rebbe, im nitrama hatruma, okay, but Rebbe teaches it if the truma is withdrawn, but not necessarily that the money was drawn and the animal was already offered. So there's a gap there as to whether one says that the person has committed ma'al, okay, misuse of temple property. And then we see again in parenthesis, nusach acher, okay, again, question of language, right? So the Gemara, we're going to skip that, except I'll just read it real quickly. Anantnina im nitrama truma utani debate Rebbe im karvaha behema. Just another rewording of what the machloket is. Amar Rebbe Lezer man tana im karvaha behema. Rabbi Shimon Rabbi Shimon the Reish Lakish Amar Miyad. Okay, so now Man Tana, according to who is it? Im Nitrama Hatruma. If we say that it's like Rebbe's view that when the money has been extracted, Rabbi Shimon he, then it's like the view of Rabbi Shimon. De Amar Rabbi Shimon, Miyad Hayam Mekabel Meotav. Okay, that immediately, okay, he says that the money is received immediately, okay, and that the Kohanim then would immediately put into process the taking of the animal, the slaughtering, etc., etc. V'hakohanim zrizim he, v'kasha, and therefore that's problematic. Ilu hagonev olato, and likewise, we have the following example: one who steals somebody else's olah offering, shel chavero, ushchato stam, and offers it without any clear intent. Stama lo l'shem ba'alim harishonim mechaperet, asks the Gemara. Don't we say here that the intent of the original owners has to be included for the atonement to be successful? Amar Rabbi Yudin, he explains it as follows: Tipater b'misuyam. He says this is where the coin, okay, is specific, distinguishable, identifiable. Okay? As in the following example, Mashal Beit Rabban Gamliel, as in the case that it was from the household of Rabban Gamliel, Shahaya mitkaven v'dochvo letoch hakupa, that they had a special coin, okay, that they would use for their machatzita shekel, and that they would then, so to speak, make sure that it was pushed in to the collection box, okay? And therefore they would, people, when the Gizbar would count it, they knew it came from them. Elek Rabbi Meir. But maybe our situation is the following. It says, V'chash lomar, shema l'shirayim hein noflin. We might think, well, maybe it's possible that the shekel would end up, okay, with the other money in the lishka, the leftover money. Okay? V'chiyesh me'ilah b'shirayim. And therefore, do we say, would one be over on transgress temple property use on this additional leftover money? Elek Rabbi Meir. Except that is possible if we hold that our Mishnah follows the view of Rabbi Meir, which is a minority opinion. The Rabbi Meir Omer Mo'elim b'shirayim, that it's Rabbi Meir who says that it is possible, okay, that one commits me'ilah with this leftover money. Oh, then furthermore, he mesuyam, but we've distinguished that this is a specific coin. Shel Beit Rabban Gamliel, shahayam mitkavein v'tormo lishmo. Excuse me, that it was donated and it was put in the collection box specifically, okay, so that it would be included as part of the initial money taken out, both for the from the lishka for the immediate purpose of the offerings, namely manehene. Okay, so what is the benefit of doing this, of having it done this way? Amar Rabbi Avin b'shem Rabbanan Ditman. So Rabbi Avin answered in the name of the Babylonian, the scholars from there, from Babylonia. Mekevan shebeit din ru'uyim l'mishkan, v'lo mishkano kamo shenehaneh. That he's basically saying that the court has this power, okay, that they can take, remember we said, a mashkon, a collateral from a person. Okay? And so in this way, we see that they don't take any collateral from the house of Rabban Gamliel, okay, in this case, and therefore, okay, he does not derive any direct benefit from having put the money in and knowing that it is used initially right away for the korban. Okay, having said that, we'll continue. Mima'aser sheni. What about the fact if they took the shkalim from other consecrated money? Okay, like we said, from Maaser Sheni money, which was supposed to be put aside and then brought to Jerusalem and buy the food there and eat it there. Okay, or other examples. V'chulei. Dichtiv, why? Okay, or money that was for tithing. Ach bechor asher yevacher l'Hashem bebehema, right? Because we have here a pasuk, right? Says that the firstborn becomes the property of Hashem. Okay. What about that? Right? Bebehema. Lo yakdish ish oto, that a person cannot consecrate it. Okay. V'chol shehu kodesh ein kedusha chala alav. And something that's consecrated, further consecration cannot be put on top of it. Ketzad hu oseh. So then what is the person supposed to do? Okay. Mevi sela shel chulin. He's so then expected to take a sela coin, okay, which remember we said was 2 shkalim. Okay, that was chulin, that was unconsecrated. Va'omer me'ot ma'aser sheni b'chol makom shehem yihiyu mechulalim al sela zo. He says this, the ma'aser sheni money, okay, wherever it might be, okay, whether it's lost, whether it's, I took it and accidentally put shkalim in it, okay, put it for shkalim, it's now transferred onto this sela coin. Va'oto sela nitpas l'shem ma'aser sheni. Okay, and now this sela coin has the value, the sanctity of ma'aser sheni, right? V'hashar ne'asu shkalim, and anything above that, okay, the rest of the value of the sela coin is going to be considered like my payment of the shkalim. And that's what the person has to do. Okay? So we're going to stop right there. Okay. Tomorrow's daf would be love.